It's unreal, honestly. I'm here now, and I still feel like it's a dream, that I'm dreaming that I'm in New York City.
To all the victims of 9/11. You know, the memorial is really emotional for me, but this is something like paying respect to the people who lost their lives over here. And like I said, everything started for me right here. For me, I never said this before, but it's personal for me to come down here.
It does hurt in a way, what I go through, but it's okay. No, I didn't do nothing wrong, so just.
We believe through our investigation that various individuals connected to Al-Qaeda have been operating in the Lodi area.
23-year-old Hamid Hayat, the son, tried to fly home from Pakistan and
further stated that he had specifically requested to come to the United States to carry out his jihadi mission.
Were you there for some sort of terrorist camp?
No.
23-year-old Hamid Hayat is guilty, convicted of providing support or resources to terrorists, then lying about it to the FBI.
I do believe that there were issues with this jury.
This was the terrorism case that the government was putting on worldwide.
We are Muslim. That doesn't matter. We are Muslim, but we are peaceful people.
My son, he's innocent. I just think that they were out to get a prosecution.
My name is Hamid Hayat. I spent 14 years in prison on terrorism charges, falsely accused.
تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى.
At times, it does get hard, you know what I mean? But for me, I'm proud to be a Muslim, you know what I mean? I've been through a lot, so you know what I mean? For me, it just made me a stronger and better person as a human being and as a Muslim, so.
سمع الله لمن حمده.
Just with my family, I'm enjoying life. I'm just out, you know what I mean? It's unreal, honestly. I'm still like hard to process. So. Much love and respect for you. Were you good? Going to Capitals game this year? They come to Frisco, you know that, huh, this year? Supportive, really good people. Like he really, like I was just telling him, like how you guys helped me adjust over here. Alhamdulillah, you're part of it too.
Alhamdulillah, we gotta do what we can. That's all.
You know, where's the coffee at now?
He's addicted to coffee, this guy.
I was born in Stockton, but I grew up in Lodi. I mean, Stockton and Lodi both were always home to me. So. Community-wise, I go to the mosque. I'm active over there as a community member. That's pretty much it. Like, you know, just trying to fit back in society, like adjust.
What you got going today, me?
Not much, bro. Just chilling,
hanging out.
Yep.
Been with me every other week. Yeah, he switches it up from time to time. He always tells me, just do whatever you think looks best. You know, a lot of maintenance. Haircut, I've learned his hair over the time.
That's my original barber, though.
Yeah.
Since day one, since I've been out of prison.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically, all the young men in this community were being brought in and questioned by the FBI, strictly on the basis of their religious and national identity. So don't ask me to tell you why the government did that, because I believe what they did was completely wrong and unjustified, and I could say more.
And we're coming back here to California to SFO, and I noticed an air host come and look at our seat numbers. And the way she looked at the seat number, I told my mom, I said, Mom, I just have a feeling something's gonna happen. 5 hours later, 10 hours later, I don't know how long it was, but they diverted the plane to Japan. Attaché for FBI came on the plane and they escorted us. And I couldn't comprehend, I'm like, what's going on? What happened? Like, I didn't even know. The questions they were asking, like, somebody reported you for gang activities. I'm like, gang activities? I was shocked. I was like, what? Like, they were not being clear. They were like, I felt like they were fishing around. He came back after a while and then said that you're clear, you can go. It was maybe 3, maybe 4 days, I think. The FBI came to my house too in Lodi. They asked me questions like any like if I had any connection with terrorism or anything, or attended any camps or anything. I'm like, no, I denied everything. And they're like, okay, we'd like you to come down to the office for questioning. My parents said that we got nothing to hide, we can go.
Do they move the camps from one area to another very often, a lot or not a lot?
Can't say. But the mistake we made was we should have took our attorney with us, which we didn't. Maybe, I'm not sure.
You're watching KCRA 3 Reports, where the news comes first.
We believe through our investigation that various individuals connected to Al-Qaeda have been operating in the Lodi area.
This was the proverbial bombshell that went off for Northern California. It seemed incredible that these people had been living here for years and years.
Under arrest is 22-year-old Hamid Hayat and his father Umair, who is 47.
The Lodi father and son accused of lying to federal agents about suspected terrorist activities.
It was almost unbelievable. People were afraid. Everyone was talking about it. It led the newscast on KCRA for days, if not weeks.
The FBI says it's been watching the men for years.
This was a huge deal. I remember hearing that there'd been a terrorism arrest. And that was maybe the biggest story in the country.
Officials say he had a general plan to attack hospitals and grocery stores, but no specific plot, no exact targets, and no immediate timeline.
All of a sudden, national media descended upon Lodi and upon Sacramento to try to find out more about this supposed sleeper cell.
I drove out there. There were satellite trucks, tons of reporters.
And that Hamid Hayat said, quote, he was awaiting orders to fight Americans.
Simply put, these two gentlemen warrant being detained at this time. These are, in fact, very serious charges.
All right, guys, you ready to turn around? Come on now.
It didn't really hit me till the attorneys came in and spoke to us, honestly. I was by myself all the time. And it was really hard for me to adjust in the beginning. And I was like, man, it gotta be a dream. It gotta be a dream out there, but it was a reality. I mean, the government was more pushing for like a plea deal.
What did they offer you?
I think they said that go ahead and you plead guilty and we'll let your father go. I thought about it, honestly, because I couldn't see my dad in there. I honestly couldn't have. But then when my attorney explained to me, look, you're not pleading guilty to false statement. You're pleading guilty to terrorism. I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I didn't do that. So why would I do that? She said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go to trial.
They're devastated that they're in jail, and they're hopeful that they'll get out because we're prepared to defend them.
We had Wajma Majididi, who became Hamid's trial counsel. She was a new attorney. She's a Muslim, Afghani origin, and had done some immigration work, I believe, and maybe had begun to dabble in family law.
She did make one point very clear. She says the critical link in this case, the government cannot prove Hamid actually attended a jihadist-style training camp.
The trial was not only compelling because of the nature of it, but we're also learning new things throughout the course of the trial. For example, one of the things we learned in the trial that it had all started with this FBI informant named Nasim Khan.
I was shocked. Honestly. I was shocked, sad. It was an awful event that happened. It should have never happened. The innocent lives, like people lost over there. It was sad.
Did you know that that moment was going to change your life?
No, honestly, no.
Military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil.
Mr. bin Laden and other associates of your terror reign, your days are numbered, your days are about over. We will not succumb to the fear because America remains united against the threat of terrorism.
What was the tenor like in Congress at that point, in the days and weeks following 9/11?
Anger and grief. Anger and grief. Now remember, the Patriot Act came later after the authorization to use military force. And everyone thought that this would be a strategy to keep further attacks from occurring.
This landmark legislation will provide law enforcement and intelligence agencies additional tools that are needed to address the threat of terrorism and to find and prosecute terrorist criminals. It provides for enhanced wiretap and surveillance authority.
Nothing could be more important in our careers here in the Congress, no matter how long we stay, than to protect the American people.
And of course, the environment then was very anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, anti-everything, and everybody in many ways. And so it was overly broad and could create havoc on innocent people's lives.
There's a lot in this bill that we have not appropriately considered, and that's why we need more time to think of it, because it goes way past terrorism.
To make certain that the people who seek to terrorize us and to kill our citizens are brought to justice, and indeed, even more importantly, stop these individuals before they commit these heinous acts.
We're very concerned by the Patriot Act and how now it's accepted to target even American citizens. We knew it was going to get ugly. And we saw, cases started happening around the country.
Both men listened intently as attorneys spent hours questioning prospective jurors. Defense attorney Johnny Griffin asked point blank, "When you heard about the charges in this case, what did you think?" Many people said 9/11. Two separate juries will be selected in this case, one for the 48-year-old ice cream vendor from Lodi, the second for his son.
It was not apparent in the early days what they were basing the case on. But as the case started to go to court and there started to be court filings, I learned that there was a quote-unquote witness in the case. So I immediately went back to Lodi. I started talking to my sources, and immediately people said, that must be this man named Nasim Khan.
My name is Clayton, and Nasim lived with me in my family home here in Prineville for a year. This is the house, this is the place. It's a lot nicer than it used to be. His room right here, that window, where he stayed, and mine was up above. He was a great time. He was really kind, he was really cool, real, generous. He was fun. He was always looking out, for me anyway.
Do you ever talk about it at all, about the FBI, about being an informant or anything like that?
He didn't want to, not only was he not allowed, initially, we knew very little. He told us very little, but after the fact, he really didn't want to talk about it at all.
And Nasim Khan had been living up in Oregon when the FBI approached him in the month after 9/11, looking for some sort of information.
Nasim Khan is an extremely common name, so they had the wrong Nasim Khan, but he started talking.
He was a clerk making minimum wage. He told the agents that he had seen Ayman al-Zawahiri in Lodi, California. Now, Zawahiri was bin Laden's number 2 man. And so when he said bin Laden's number 2 man was in Lodi, California, everybody said, whoa, we got to get to Lodi, California.
Nasim Khan actually was in Lodi before the attacks of 9/11. He got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, he was given an SUV and a place to live. He'd be perfect to sort of infiltrate the mosque. So he stumbles upon this young man, Hamid Hayat.
Looking back at it now, oh my God, you know, yeah. I felt like I had an older brother, you know what I mean? Like somebody, you know, like took me under their wing.
The false predication that the case was based on, you know, seeing Ayman al-Zawahiri in Lodi, you know, was false, never happened.
And so Nasim Khan comes along and he starts, you know, talking to Hamid Hayat. Hamid Hayat is also sort of a braggart, and this guy is all ears. And so they become close very fast, and they talk about everything. And he sort of gives Hamid Hayat an outlet to talk.
In 2003, he began secretly recording hundreds of hours of conversations with 23-year-old Hamid Hayat. On the stand today, Khan testified Hayat talked about the Taliban, martyrs, and his disdain for the U.S. Hayat: "This country is mine in name only. My heart is in Pakistan." The two also discussed signing up for terrorist training. Hayat is heard telling Khan he can help him find a camp. Khan: "Who would we contact to take us to training?" Hayat: "Whichever jihad group you want to do it with. It's up to you, any group."
Hamid at the time, he was kind of a slacker. There was a lot of talk in those days about, like, you can't believe anything that Hamid says.
Kind of statements that he'd made that were in poor taste. I just recognized it as bluster. Bluster of a person who comes from my part of the world. You know, people who maybe have felt a lot of dissatisfaction with the role, you know, of the United States and other Western countries in affecting the fates of our nations.
I think one of the most egregious one was he talked about the journalist Pearl, who was killed by the terrorists, and he seemed sympathetic to those terrorists. Bad.
I feel bad, to be honest with you, because I didn't know. Now looking back at it, I was not open-minded. What I said was wrong.
Now, what were you over in Pakistan doing?
I went, actually my youngest sister got married at the time, then I got married myself.
I got married in my village in 2005 at the time, yeah.
So was he trying to call you a lot off?
Yeah, yeah, he was. It was the same conversation like he was trying to have, like we're having a normal, like, you know, about radicalism and stuff like that.
And the thrust of those conversations, the ones that were most important, was basically Nasim Khan berating Hamid Hayat. "I thought you were going to go to a terrorist camp. You know, what happened? You're slacking. You're not doing anything." Because the key parts of these phone calls was when Hamid was in Pakistan.
You have a guy who was his clerk making minimum wage. Now he's got $250,000 or close to it, driving a brand new car. He sees this coming to an end, and he says to Hamid, "If you don't go into a terrorism camp, I'm going to go there, drag you by the neck, and force you to go there myself."
Were you there for some sort of terrorist camp?
No, at all. Never did. I was with my family all the time. Never went nowhere. I went to attend a wedding, other part of Pakistan, but I went with my family members.
The government star witness, born in Pakistan, now a naturalized American citizen, Nasim Khan is now an undercover operative working for the FBI.
The defense really tried to chip away at that, you know. How much were you paid? Why did you say these things, like that you saw Taliban leaders and Al-Qaeda leaders at the mosque that were clearly not true? But ultimately, you know, the prosecution did lean on him to try to build the case.
Hamid Hayat's defense attorney started out by making a shocking statement. She will not ask the jury to believe her client. She admits Hamid has made conflicting statements, adding, "The 23-year-old from Lodi has a limited education and is prone to tell stories."
Did you think you were going to lose?
I had no idea what was going to happen.
Yes, I think we're satisfied with how the case is progressing, and we're ready to proceed.
Today, Judge Peter Nowinski ordered prosecutors to turn over all of its evidence in this case pertaining to allegations of lying to the suspect's attorneys by the end of the day today.
Judge Nowinski commended our office for acting extraordinarily quickly in turning over by close of business today the interview videotapes.
The government had one huge piece of evidence against Hamid Hayat, and that is he had confessed.
Yeah, my understanding, Hamid, is that you attended some camps.
Okay.
And that's true, right? And so why don't you tell me, so I understand, I know where you're coming from. Bring me up to speed a little bit on the camps that you attended.
You mean what kind of camp were they?
Yes.
They were like training camps.
Okay.
You know, they train you.
That was a longer interrogation. I'm not sure, was it 10, 14 hours altogether, something like that. They asked me questions or anything like if I had any connection with terrorism or anything, or attended any camps or anything. I'm like, no, I denied everything.
It's important to be honest here. You can certainly you can observe where people are sleeping and or the different buildings, the makeup of the camp itself.
Maybe.
You did go to camp. I'm like, no, I didn't. I kept on denying. I'm like, okay. I just said what they wanted to hear. Okay, I did. That's what I said.
Most of the camps, you had weapons training. You have explosives training.
Yeah, I got to the pistol, that's it.
So you did pistol training?
I did, and I'm not good at either, when I do it, no, you're not doing right, you have to do this, do it like this, like that.
And you thought you were going home?
Yes, honestly, I did. I did, honestly.
What was like that moment when they said, you're actually not going to home?
I honestly, I didn't, at the time, I didn't really know what was going on. I was more like, I was tired. I was like, I couldn't comprehend. Like, I'm like, man, I just need to sleep. I'm like, it don't matter where, I just need to sleep. Like, I would just shut down.
Does that sound right?
I don't remember it right now.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of tired right now. I couldn't even barely fix up my timetable for sleeping when I come back.
Oh, you're jet lagged still, probably a little bit. So that's okay.
Can I go home now? Can I sleep? Like, I was dead tired.
We're gonna take a break here for a second.
Let's smoke a cigarette.
Give us a minute on that, because we might be just about done here.
So any chances to go home or anything?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about that one in a second too.
Sure.
There were just moments that were really, really shocking and mind-blowing. Hamid has already begun to confess to the FBI, and during a break, he's in like a break room with one of the interrogators, and he invites the guy to his wedding reception. Because he thinks he's being really helpful, and they're going to be buds.
So come back here tomorrow, okay?
No, you're not leaving here tonight now.
No, I mean tomorrow. I'm going to be here tonight, staying here in the building.
No, you're going to go to jail.
Yeah. So
All
we're
right.
going to get a place to sleep over there like that.
It's jail, I mean,
Yeah, I know it's in jail, but can I lay down on them to sing because my head is hurting, like I want to sleep.
It's clear that he didn't understand that this was a massive national terror investigation, interrogation that was going on in this room.
In the back of the federal courtroom today, Hamid Hayat's mother watched the assistant U.S. attorney sum up the case against her son. The prosecution believes Hayat is a jihadist at heart and intended to use his training to attack U.S. targets. They feel these videotapes, which were released today, prove that during an FBI interview last June.
For me, I wanted to laugh out loud, the way they were presenting their case. I wanted to laugh out, they were just putting everything together, lying and everything. I'm like, oh my God, man,
If he actually attended a terrorist training camp, the government would have more evidence, and it doesn't.
And it took about 10 days for them to deliberate.
I really didn't know which way it would go. I had a hard time believing that they could get beyond reasonable doubt because of the nature of the evidence.
I mean, you can put yourself in the place of those jurors who had just lived through 9/11 and were being told that here is somebody that was wanting to commit a similar act, and if they didn't convict him, he would go free, and then who would be responsible for that?
I left it up to Allah, hey man, the decision is in your hand. I can only pray about it. Whatever the outcome is, I have to accept it, so.
5, 4,
3, 2.
23-year-old Hamid Hayat is guilty, convicted of providing support or resources to terrorists, then lying about it to the FBI. It's a verdict that has the U.S. Attorney's Office celebrating.
We've won a very resounding victory in a very important case.
The judge says that Hayat is a threat to Americans and must be locked up.
When the decision came back, I was not even emotional or nothing. I didn't. Like, my attorney was crying. Honestly, I kind of calmed her down, like, it's okay.
I think deep down they know that he's not a dangerous person, and the level of the crime or the gravity of the crime doesn't deserve the sentence that they're actually asking for in court.
I really didn't feel anything. I'm like, it is what it is. We're just gonna continue fighting. I went in, like I said, when the trial, right before the trial, I told myself, hey man, it's gonna be a battle. Don't know if it's gonna end our trial or we gotta go further. But I went in with the mentality that I am gonna fight to the end for my freedom.
The news just out of federal court today, Hamid Hayat has been sentenced to 24 years.
The judge said he was balancing Hayat's clean criminal record against what the judge said was a willingness to wage violent jihad within the U.S. and a likelihood, he said, Hayat might try again. And as Hamid Hayat waved goodbye to his family and headed to prison today, community leaders suggested the federal government has now burned its bridges with local Muslims.
I think the government sent a clear message to the Muslim community that you do not speak to an FBI agent unless you have an attorney present.
24 years, I think that's what they announced, if I remember correctly, 24 years. And your heart sinks when this happens, but you're like, okay, you know what? Appeal. There's no way. He's got to get him out. There's no way that this is gonna fly.
All right, so let's.
So you guys can tell me how long will this case take?
Well, that'll be explained to you later when we actually.
وإنا إن شاء الله بكم لاحقون نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. Peace be upon you, O inhabitant. I'm sorry, I'm just getting emotional. I'm sorry. So here's some more. It's my granddad. I was incarcerated. He died in 2006. Actually, the day my dad actually got released on bail, the day he died. So my dad made it for the funeral on time.
We was expecting a justice.
Outside court, Hayat's father, whose own involvement in the Lodi terrorism case ended last year with a plea bargain, reacted angrily to the judge's decision.
We not get, justice from Judge Braille. He's not served with justice. That's all.
Just minutes after that verdict was read, Hamid's defense attorney, Washma Majidity, was criticizing the jury, saying they failed to do their job.
I do believe that there were issues with this jury, that there were outside influences that affected their decision, and that it was not a fair and impartial decision because they ultimately came to the wrong verdict.
Well, the case was heavily publicized in the Bay Area as well as up in Sacramento. Actually, it was publicized nationally. We were shocked to hear of his conviction because we regarded the case as quite weak against him, and a lot of the news reports suggested it was weak.
Hamid Hayat's attorneys know arguing for a new trial will be difficult. Only a very small percentage are ever granted.
You're basically saying, Judge, there was an error in the trial you conducted.
I was contacted by Hamid's defense attorney who examined some videotapes that reportedly contained his statements made to the Bureau. I think I used the words, I thought that they were the sorriest interrogation tapes that I've ever seen.
I remember reading specifically that morning that he had been convicted and that Dennis Reardon was getting involved with that case. I immediately called his office. I just remember him telling me that he was taking me up on my offer.
He told me it's going to be a process. At the time, the appeal process, don't know how long it's going to be. But my hopes were like, okay, got high.
Parikya mung pa photo anu laka sota ukra chida to mung photo mane ukatli shpag meshte pa kal pas pada sakaralu laka no photo anu mane bezo mung dia tasali ushla laka chesta photo anu ba mung ukatal di mane bezo mung laka dira yo brosa wane zat hal taki जेल की तो मुंगला दा फोन बस्तारा गए माने बमुंग खुशालो इंतजार बस्ता दे फोन दी टाइम माने स्ता फोन राजी अनो मुंग फोटो माने माने बड़े तसली उछले चे तो मुंग फोटो केला को कतले ले
They put in a stories on us, you know, they think there is a terrorist in Lodi, and which was not true. They was trying to make a show to the government. We got the terrorist from Lodi. And Mac so upset. He was trying to cry and
Terre Haute, Indiana. That was 2007. Was there for about 15 months. Then they moved me to Marion, Illinois. Was there same amount, like 18 months or so. I was more like, man, it's gonna be hard for me and my family to come down here, which they did. They came once, and I told them never to come back down this way. I'm gonna try to come that way. It was hard. It was really hard, honestly. But as a Muslim, we believe in pre-decree, and whatever's meant to happen is gonna happen. So that's the mentality I went in with.
It was like an almost 4-year wait after oral argument for this opinion, and we were so hopeful.
Actually, I called home. Talking to my mom, it was a normal conversation, but when I spoke to my dad, I can hear in his voice something was wrong. I'm like, why do you sound like that? My dad couldn't really explain. He said, hey, talk to your mom. My mom had to tell me about it.
But in the end, they affirmed his conviction.
I kind of lost hope after my appeal got denied in 2013. The decision came back 2-1 against me in 2013.
There was some very powerful dissenting language in there from Judge Tashima. I think they were basically giving us the green light to file a habeas and saying you can't lose on habeas on this.
So during all that time, we could have certain claims litigated, but we had to wait to get to the real heart of the matter. We had to wait until after the conclusion of the appeal.
I think we all felt that we always knew that we had a strong, strong Sixth Amendment claim on habeas for ineffective assistance of counsel.
But effectively, that would be it. So it really was his last shot.
But in this motion for summary judgment filed just yesterday, his lawyers argue that Hayat's defense attorney was incompetent to handle his case.
The luckiest thing for this government team was the fact that Hamid's lawyer didn't know what she was doing.
In the course of our talks with her, what shocked us was that there had been available alibi witnesses in Pakistan who could have testified for Hamid, who were never contacted, and that the defense team had instead decided they wanted to push the case to trial as quickly as possible.
In depositions, Wazma Mojadidi says, I would say I had no experience in criminal law at the time. In fact, she was an immigration lawyer who states, I had never been in a criminal courtroom.
You have a government expert who's coming and saying, yeah, the only evidence that we have that he went to camp is his own statement, which was coerced. And we're not having an expert come in and talk about the nature of that confession. Expert testimony on coerced confession.
His answers about what he saw at the camp didn't match the surveillance photographs that the government relied on at all.
They can't even say when this guy went to camp, which kind of suggests that they really have no idea.
My appeal team explained to me about the whole process, what went wrong and everything. At the time, my attorney, trial attorney, she did what she could. I mean, she did represent me in the best way possible. If I'm not mistaken, she never had a federal case before. She had a lack of knowledge of the law.
Hayat's attorneys maintain that Mojadidi was in way over her head and could not present a legitimate defense for her client. She was assigned to the case because she speaks Pashto and Urdu.
Not applying for CIPA, the Classified Information Procedures Act. The defense declined that, and they forfeited access to all, basically, of the government's so-called evidence, which I think we would have been able to discover that it really was non-existent.
So all these inconsistencies, those were all apparent. At some point after we had filed our federal habeas corpus action, one of the lawyers for the government contacted Dennis and said, hey, would you be willing to settle this case?
They came back multiple times. My attorney told me that the government's offering plea deals. Plead guilty, go home within 24 hours, but you're pleading guilty to terrorism. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking nothing.
And that was a real tell that the government knew that the claims we were making had a lot of merit, because there is no way the government would ever propose such a thing if they thought that they had a true terrorist on their hands.
You know, I showed it to somebody in prison at the time, and he's like, are you crazy? You be free, go home. I'm like, free? But the label that I'm gonna have on me for something I didn't do.
That meant waiting not only for a year and a half to have the new trial motion decided, but another 4.5 to 5 years to have the appeal decided, which is an extraordinarily long time for an appeal to last.
But I didn't do it, so think about it. Well, you have freedom. I'm like, bro, I'd rather stay, do my whole sentence and walk out than plead guilty to something. I think I have it more. Let's see. These pictures do bring back a lot of memories. It's my cousin I met, came visit me. That was in 2012. This one was in Terre Haute, Indiana. When I went in there, I was 23 years old, and I came across a lot of people who had experience in life and in doing time in prison. So just being around them kind of helped me develop, and I became more mature in prison. 2026, May 2nd.
May 2nd, 2026.
Yes.
What are you going to do on that day?
I don't know, honestly. That was my full release date. Honestly, like I said, it was just okay. And until this day, I do think about that date, honestly. Okay, what if things didn't work out? I just had to look forward to that day.
Hamid wouldn't have been blamed or judged by anybody for saying, you know what? Material support for terrorism, that's a heavy, heavy charge. How am I ever going to get out from under that, just, personally, reputationally? And if I could agree to some lesser still terror-related thing and get out a lot earlier, I can have a life. I don't think anybody in his case was ever counting on people working for him the way Dennis and the team that Dennis put together, of which I am a member, did.
It was July 29, 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I remember, yeah. I was just watching TV, sports. My unit manager came in, called my name. Hyatt. I'm like, yes, ma'am. In the office. I'm like, in my case manager office. My case managers are not there. I'm like, I did clean the office this morning, so I don't know if she wants me to clean again. So I'm like, okay. I go in there. She's like, your attorney's gonna call right now. You have some good news. My heart drops to the floor. I froze for a minute. And I'm like, no, it can't be. It can't be. It can't be what I'm thinking. As soon as my attorney calls, I pick up the phone. She goes pick it up, and then it's like, Hamid? I'm like, yes, we won, and that was it. I started shaking, crying, the feeling kicked in, no, this is not true. It was so unreal. Sorry. It was an unreal feeling, honestly.
And I just remember crying. Yeah.
Still emotional today about it?
I'm surprised, to be honest with you, yeah, but yes.
Why?
Because Hamid's like a part of my family now, you know, my heart family, and I'm so proud of him.
I walked out of there and I'm holding the wall, walking like, and I couldn't walk. And I went to a friend of mine's cell who's I'm really close to in there, and I went and sit down on his chair. I'm crying. He's like, "Are you good? What's going on? Your family good? What?" And I said, "I won, man. My appeal came back in my favor. My petition, the court ruled in my favor." We hugged each other, started crying, and I went back to my cell and I told my cellmate about it, and he was happy. He's like, "Man, get ready." I'm like, "Bro, get ready. I don't even know, man. It doesn't feel right. I'm so used to being in here, like, it doesn't feel right going home right now." So.
You know, his parents had no idea, so we talked with some of his family members. We're like, "Hey, he's getting out. We're gonna get him here. We don't want your parents to know. We want to make it a surprise." And then someone took him from Arizona to Southern California, and then from Southern California brought him downtown Sacramento.
No, Jeremiah. No.
Everybody started crying. I told my mom, I'm like, "Hey, your prayer's been accepted. I'm home now." I was just more. It was the feeling was so good, like it was unreal.
I had a saying with my wife. I used to say to her, there will be a day that people will find out this case was bogus, that he didn't go to a camp, that he wasn't a terrorist. There will be a day. And my wife, we were in a nice restaurant in Palm Springs, and we were sitting down, and all of a sudden I could feel my cell phone go off, and I was getting a text, and so I looked at her and I said, "Sorry, it's emotional." This was a hard case. I said, "Today's the day."
I'm still in shock. I can't believe this day came. I still think this is a dream. I wake up and I still think I'll be in prison.
Hamid Hayat served nearly 14 years in a federal prison in Arizona, convicted of training in a Pakistani terrorist camp and lying to the FBI about it. But Hayat never attended the camp, and it was the government that lied, according to Hayat's legal team.
They said, you know, you've told us time and time again you don't go to a camp, but what about the pictures we have of you in a camp?
And those pictures were false, never...
No, they didn't exist. They admitted they didn't exist.
I'm lost for words. I really don't have anything to say. I'd like to thank everyone, my legal team, all my supporters, brothers and sisters, my non-Muslim supporters, everybody. This day was not possible without you guys.
Through all of this, his faith sustained him. And I have to say, if this experience proved anything into the world, Hamid Hayat is a man of peace.
Oh, I mean, Dennis was the driving force in this case from the get-go. I mean, he and I both were very eager to work on it. He knew how weak the evidence was.
I spoke to Dennis and I told him, "Hey, thank you very much." I was crying. He was really happy. On the other side, I said, "Thank you for all those years you fought for my freedom. I'm out now, and it's because of your hard work." Sorry, I really miss him, honestly. I don't think I would be a free man if he was not my appeal attorney. To this day, I think if he didn't take my case, I think I'll still be in prison. The work they put in, honestly, I don't know how to thank them. Like, I think the words are not enough for me to just thank them. I don't know how can I pay them back for what they did for 14 years fighting for my freedom. You know, I'm free. The biggest blessing is to just be back with my family, my parents, my siblings, my cousins.
ما دا دغه چې الله پاک دې داسې دغه هیپن هیڅ چا سره نه کوي لکه چې موږ سره شوی دی. زما دغه دعا ده چې الله پاک دې هر څوک دې نه وساتي لکه چې موږ سره شي داسې د هیڅ چا سره زندګي کې نه کېږي ځکه چې زموږ د ټولو لایف ډېره خرابه شوه.
Not the same. It mentally destroyed them, honestly. I mean, destroyed my parents mentally. Like, as I said, they fearlessly fought for me, but it really destroyed them at the same time. I mean, they were happy to see me come home, but it really took a toll on them.
Hi there. I'm looking for Nassim. Is he here at all? He's at work. Yeah. My name is Jason Marks, and I'm a reporter down in Sacramento. Is there a way that I can just get in touch with him?
I forgive him, honestly. I just leave it up to God to deal with him. I'm not holding no grudges, no ill feelings towards nobody, honestly. It's not gonna do me no good, but I'm a person who forgives.
How far is Lodi from Stockton?
10 to 15 minute drive.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all, yes. It's just.
But it sounds like in your mind it's an ocean away.
It is, absolutely, yeah. Can I say, do you guys want to take a drive down there, just pass by my house?
Which house?
The old house in Lodi. I can do that, but I'm not going to get out of the car.
Why is it so mentally difficult to go to a place that you once called home?
Just because of what I've been through, honestly. Just like the flashbacks I get from the past events that happened with me. This is my house right here.
And when was the last time you were actually in the house?
2005. I feel like it's so hard to come to Lodi, and then when I'm about to leave, I just can't wait. Like, let me just get out of here. Like, the feeling is.
Yeah, it sounds like you're still trying to find your footing, even 5 years later.
Yes, honestly, I am. You said it perfectly right there. Yeah. I don't know what direction I'm gonna go into. Like, I don't even have no goal sets or nothing. I have nothing like planned, like any, you know what I mean?
Unfortunately, having your conviction vacated is not the legal equivalent of an exoneration. In this case, his conviction was vacated because they found that there were constitutional defects in the trial, in the process that he was given. So there wasn't a kind of legal finding of innocence, right? We contend that that is, kind of essentially an exoneration. But for the purposes of your question, that doesn't amount to an exoneration in the sense in which you can say, you know what, you got the wrong guy, you robbed him of X number of years of his life, and he deserves to be compensated. Is there any doubt in my mind that that's exactly what happened and that that is exactly what Hamid deserves? No. Unfortunately, the law as we understand it doesn't provide for that.
You know, when I think about the fact that he spent 14 years in a federal penitentiary, often among true terrorists, and that's something that no one can ever give back to Hamid Hayat. No one can ever give back to him those 14 years.
You know, we learned a lot from 9/11, but one of the things that we learned was that the response, you know, led to some tragic outcomes. The fear, we all remember, was so great after the attacks that people didn't want it to happen again, and people expected the government to protect them. And the government went out and it treated the Muslim community like it essentially treated the mafia.
When I represented Hamid at trial, the political climate was very, very different. The witnesses who came forward 12 years after his conviction would have never testified at his trial. I have always believed in Hamid's innocence, and I am happy that he is no longer in prison. At the end of the day, I fell on my sword for Hamid so he can enjoy the freedom that he deserves.
Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We are now boarding all...
I'm really excited, looking forward to this trip. I was planning on this for a long time. The feeling's unreal, like, just so excited, looking forward to going to places that I want to go. This was something I planned on when I got out, actually. Like, I was planning on before I was in prison, but when I got out, I told my attorney, my late attorney at the time, I'm like, hey Dennis, I'm gonna go to New York, vacation. And he's like, okay, we're gonna make that happen. This was the first time that I had to go through secondary screening like 3 times. I mean, as the TSA agents told me, hey, you're clear. We don't need you back down here. But the airline, I don't know what happened, but I'm used to it, honestly.
Is it demoralizing? What's the thought? What's the feeling?
I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just like, I'm like, it is what it is. I'm over it. Like, I'm just glad I can fly. It's a hassle. But you guys witnessed it, but for me, it's like, I'll say another day, a regular day.
Yeah, you don't think about that stuff.
It's a dream come true. Like I said, this was on my bucket list. I'm just looking at it, can't believe it.
Please hold handrails whenever possible, particularly on stairway.
Amazing. I'm lost for words.
Attention, please. We are now approaching a dockside landing.
It's unreal, man. Like, I couldn't imagine 4 years ago getting out, like I'm gonna, do something like this.
Kind of hump you see over there is Staten Island. So that's one of the 5 boroughs in New York City.
I mean, I just hope my story will make a difference now. I don't want this to happen to anybody. That's the main goal. I don't want this to happen to anybody. Nobody should go through what I've been through. Nobody.
He had a life ahead of him that is now forever changed. Nobody who had a hand in that has said, sorry.
This fight was for everyone. He fought for everyone. I hope he inspires others to keep fighting as well. If you are innocent, you just fight. You fight.
Don't give up. Don't give up on your freedom.
Oh my God. Oh, this is unreal, bro.
Where does all the emotion come from?
Freedom means so much. It's unreal. Like, looking at the symbols and everything, the meanings, the words and everything, it's just so deep. Unreal, honestly. I'm sorry, I'm just getting emotional.